welcome to Flavour Text, the podcast where we explore the intersection between lore, story and gameplay in Arkham Horror the card game. I'm CrabbyTerror8 and I'm joined as per usual by my sagacious host, Kevling. Hi, Kevling.
I'm not even going to acknowledge that until I know what it means.
Oh, well, for those astute listeners amongst us, I'm sure they would know. I didn't know, ChatGPT told me, but apparently sagacious means showing a keen mental discernment and good judgment.
Oh, yes, I'll take that one then, yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sagacious-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're right.
My enormous pile of unplayed board games might argue against that one.
Have you been, Kevling?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Another week goes by. What have you been up to lately?
As I was saying on our playthrough the other week, I've just treated myself to a Steam Deck, so I've been playing a lot of PC games. And when I say a lot of PC games, I've probably been playing 2 PC games. I've been playing Balatro, which is like a roguelike deck builder that's based around poker. Nice. It's an absolutely incredible game. And then I've been playing Midnight Suns, Marvel's Midnight Suns, which is almost like... I'm sorry, there's a common theme here. It's like XCOM crossed with a deck builder with Marvel layered on the top.
Right. Okay.
So you basically have a whole load of scenarios that your heroes are dumped into, and then each hero has his own deck of cards. So you use the cards to determine what actions they're going to take.
Right.
Right. And then in between, there's lots of wandering around and having chats and making friends.
Okay. Is it anything like Slay the Spire? I mean, that's a kind of a...
Not well. In that you do have cards that determine your actions, yes, and you can upgrade and get new cards and upgrade the decks. But gameplay wise, it's like looking down on an XCOM game where you've got all of your heroes out there and you've got obstacles in their way and line of sight and what have you. But there's none of the random element in terms of whether your hit is going to be successful. You know, like when you play an XCOM and you go 95% chance to hit and you still miss. There's none of that. If you're going to hit, you hit. The randomness is which cards you're going to get and what actions you can take.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it's very good. It's padded out a lot with the sort of chatty interaction bits in between missions. It's broken up into days. You go out on a mission for the day and then you'll have a bit of a chat and you might join the book club or you're trying to make Peter Parker feel a little bit less insecure about his relationship with the other Avengers and things like that.
Okay. They sound great.
It's good. I think I am nearly 30 hours in and it's just started part 2, whatever that means. I don't know how many parts there are.
Wow.
I think How Long to Beat says it's about 40 hours to finish the game, so I guess maybe it's just a 2-parter and I'm halfway through. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, sounds
fantastic. Really enjoying that. And the fact that I can just sit playing it in front of the telly, it's not the sort of game where you need to react instantly. Things only happen when you play your card. There's no reaction, so to speak. So again, suits an old man like me. It's effectively, totally turn-based. And really enjoying it.
No need for those Twitch-based muscle reactions and things.
No. And then Arkham-wise, we played our second scenario of Hemlock Vale last week.
Yes.
And we did, well, rather coincidentally for what we're going to look at today, it's one where we were lost in the woods and trying to find our way through the woods to rescue somebody. So
Yeah, I know that one.
So bit of deja vu. Talking about this today.
Yes. Yeah. What's a Arkham Horror campaign without at least one woods scenario?
Yes, definitely. And what about yourself? What have you been up to?
Oh, I finished Baldur's Gate 3.
Ooh.
Yes, 190 something hours it took.
Did you properly finish it, or did you cop out like I did? Did you actually do the final fight?
I did, yes.
Yeah, you did it properly then.
It took a few goes because there's a kind of quite a lot of the boss fights you can end up kind of faffing around doing other things, but really if you just focus on the main game, so to speak, and I don't want to give away how you finish the final boss, if you just focus on that, that happened all relatively quickly once I knew what to do and where to go and everything. But there was a bit of a wrinkle in the sense that even when you get to the right place, the platforms can all get destroyed, and I didn't realise that, so I kind of lost half my party and that kind of thing. But no, I got there in the end, so all done, which was quite a relief, really. It's been, I think I started in November or something. It was just a long time ago, so I was glad to get that one finished.
Brilliant.
Yes.
So I also started Final Fantasy VII Rebirth as well, but then, like I say, I've got a Steam Deck and then everything else has gone out the window.
Out the window.
I need to go back to that.
Well, I've really sucker for punishment because I've started God of War Ragnarok straight after Baldur's Gate, and they couldn't be more different in terms of combat style. So my reactions are all slow and
it's a great game though. Absolutely brilliant game.
Yeah, it's good so far. I got through the first part, and I'm just trying to take on Thor, and let me tell you, the only thing that was Thor were my hands after trying to beat him with my fingers, and it's like, woof, that's a bit much. So
the characters are fantastic in that game.
Yes.
And there's I've forgotten what his name is. Heimdall, of course it's Heimdall. Have you come across Heimdall yet in Ragnarok?
No.
That's a treat. I won't say any more. They do an incredible job of making a character you really, really hate.
Oh, great. Okay, fantastic. And I love I don't know who does the voice of the head. I can't remember the name of the head, but
Mimir, is it?
Yeah, fantastic.
Yes.
Really, really like Mimir.
It's Scottish, isn't it? It's a Scottish voice, if I remember right.
Yeah, and his commentary is fantastic. I really enjoy that.
Simon are just on GameFound at the moment with a God of War board game, and I've tentatively backed it, but I'm still undecided as to whether I'm going to pull the plug before it finishes or not. But because it is a minis fest, absolute minis fest.
Yes.
They're doing it where if you get the core game, it's $70, but for just $20 more, you can get the stretch goals. And I've been keeping track. There's nearly double the amount of miniatures in the stretch goals box as there is in the original box, just for an extra $20. You're thinking, well, shall I? And then they're adding all these add-ons, and they're adding all the old God of War villains and things into it, and and the Valkyries from the Ragnarok, and
yes, yeah.
But I'm umming and ahhing as to whether I actually bite the bullet on that one.
Yeah, I got the Simon game, Bloodborne.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and that had 1 billion miniatures and everything. So, miniature fest it was.
Yeah, I've got one of the Zombicide games up there, and yes, the box is full of miniatures, and you probably use 6 of them in a game.
Yes, right. Exactly.
I do have. I might have shown you this on camera before. I've got the God of War card game by Simon, and apparently it's the same developers that have made the board game. Okay. So,
yeah, should be good.
It's all the same art style and everything. Everything's very Nordic, and all the all the Ragnarok sort of iconography.
Yeah,
all nice to look at, even if you don't play it.
And Arkham-wise, I did get together with the fortnightly crew to play Hemlock, but we took too long again with the prelude because it was like beginning of day 2 or something. So by the time we'd sat down and everyone was there and we'd done the prelude and done all that, it was already like 2 hours in.
Is that one of the sort of preludes where you have to play it? Like the first one?
Yes. So there's one, I'm assuming there's one each day, so there must be 3.
Yeah, because the night one is more a series of decisions, or at least the first night anyway. It was like, are you going to eat? Where are you going to sit? And that's about it. Really,
yeah. So it is a little, so it was one of those situations a bit like with Scarlet Keys, where by the time we'd sorted all that out, there wasn't really enough time to then do the scenario itself. So that is something of a bit of a watch out, I think, with it. It's still got that. It's not quite as bad as Scarlet Keys, but it's still got that thing where you need to build in that time.
Yeah.
So yes. So haven't gone to the house yet. So
yeah, I look forward to that.
Yes.
I think our next session, we've booked a daytime session at the weekend, so it taking a little bit longer than normal might not be as bad, rather than trying to do it in an evening.
Yeah, exactly. It's just when the evenings are like sort of 6:37ish till 10. It's a hard stop at 10. You've just got 3 hours to get it done. So yeah. So anyway, where are we at with the Circle Undone, Kevling?
Well, we're about to kick off the campaign proper, aren't we? After doing the sort of previously on Arkham Horror sort of scenario that we had as the prologue. But the scene has shifted from... It was at the lodge, wasn't it? Yes. Yes, so we've moved on from the Silver Twilight Lodge charity gala of the prologue to a completely different setting where we are... Well, as we said earlier, we're going to be lost in the woods. It's the witching hour.
Yes. Right, yes, so we are off to the woods, but there's a bit of a sort of intro here. Do you want to kick off, Kevling?
Yes, so intro 1. It is a breezy November evening in Arkham, the perfect night for a walk through Independence Square, or so you had thought, until the moment Anna Caslow offered to tell your fortune. You agreed, though you would soon come to regret this decision. For each of the cards the Romani soothsayer draws from her deck, she weaves a tale of despair and misfortune, judgment, temperance, justice, the hermit, the hanged man, the hierophant, the lovers, the chariot, the wheel of fortune. To complete her tale, Anna draws the top card and lays it at the centre of the formation. Dominating the old worn card is the ominous image of a towering construct of black onyx. A hellish storm rages over the tower, lightning coursing through the dark clouds. It reads, "The Tower, 16. Even if the rest of the reading had gone swimmingly, the sight of the centre card would have sent a shiver down your spine. As it stands now, it feels more like the closing of a casket over your body." "You did tell me to give you straight," the soothsayer says. She sits cross-legged in front of you, wearing a stony, grim expression. From her unwavering gaze and her cold eyes, you can tell Anna derives no satisfaction from this reading. "Simple misfortune is the least of your concerns," she explains. "This is a matter of life and death." She motions to the cards surrounding the tower, each of them laid in the reverse position, and stares at them intently. "Arrayed against you is everything that you cannot see. You alone stand in their way," she says enigmatically. "The lead investigator must decide. Choose one. What can I do to avoid this fate?" Proceed to intro 2. Or, "This is bullshit." Skip to intro 3.
Yes, so a bit of a choice here, whether to believe it or not. So I think Anna Caslow is actually an ally, I think, in this campaign. Well, in the original one, I don't think she's one of the cards in a latest that you used to get in a later scenario, because you'd get some cards with every scenario. But yeah, she's like a level 3 ally or something like that, that kind of helps with tarot cards, I think. She's actually pretty good for tarot cards if you have quite a few in your deck. So it's nice the way they've sort of woven her into the story here at the beginning. Yeah. So if you say, "What can I do to avoid this fate?" you get intro 2. The woman nods and draws the top card of the deck with a steady hand, revealing it to you without looking at it herself. Depicted on the card is a single wooden wand surrounded by a pattern of broken, stained glass. It reads, "Ace of Rods." "You must be ready to act," she advises, without hesitation, without regret. "When the opportunity arises, you must set into motion the events that will change this fate." And then it says, "In your campaign log, record that you have accepted your fate and add 2 tablet tokens to the chaos bag for the remainder of the campaign." And then it says, before drawing his or her opening hand for this scenario, the lead investigator searches the collection for a copy of the tower, which is a weakness, I think, from memory, and one copy of the ace of rods, and adds each of them to his or her deck if able. The lead investigator has earned these cards. They do not count towards his or her deck size. If one or both of these cards is not available, skip this step and then go to intro 4. So you get a couple of tarot cards as a sort of a benefit.
So then if you take the other option, this is bullshit, skip to intro 3. The woman smirks. Yes, in a sense, I suppose it is, she responds. With a single swift motion, she picks up each of the cards displayed before you, save for the tower card, and shuffles them back into the deck. The cards only reveal and advise. They cannot influence or impose. She locks eyes with you and her smile vanishes from her face. In other words, though, your fate is not set in stone. I assure you, the danger you face is not bullshit. It is real. Her eyes narrow. It is very real. In your campaign log, record you have rejected your fate and add 2 Elder Thing tokens to the Chaos bag for the remainder of the campaign and proceed to intro 4. So, interestingly, there are no tablets or Elder Thing tokens in the bag before we make this decision. So it's almost a binary choice, isn't it, as to which way our bag is going to develop. And when you look at the scenario card for this one, the tablet is definitely the better of the two. It's only a -1.
Yep.
But if you fail, you have to draw a treachery, whereas the Elder Thing is a -3. If you fail, an enemy will ready and heal. So I think it's clear what the game wants you to say, what wants you to pick canonically for an easier ride. Perhaps is probably go with the flow and what can I do to avoid this fate. Whereas it's going to be more of a challenge if you do reject your fate and choose the second option.
Yes, yeah. And clearly setting out a theme of this campaign, which is that your fate is sort of, predetermined in the sense, right? Here, there are things happening which you don't have any control of, that fate, the wheel of fate, the wheels of fortune are turning, whether you like it or not. So, like you say, it seems like it's better off that you embrace your fate rather than kind of fight against it, which the sort of the bullshit option is really kind of fighting against it, I think.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head what other impact this decision will have on later scenarios, but I guess we'll pick that up as we go through the podcast.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I wonder if it's a bit like with Carcosa, where you had... Is it Carcosa I'm thinking about? Where there was sort of 2 different ways. What was there was sort of this binary thing in Carcosa. I'm trying to remember.
The doubt and conviction.
Doubt and conviction, yeah. Exactly. That kind of thing. Man, how quickly I forget things. Anyway, intro 4 then, everything proceeds through intro 4, so it all funnels through that. Silence hangs in the air as you peer into the tower card. The world around you dissolves into emptiness as your eyes fixate on the Onyx Tower. Rolling thunder echoes in the distance. Do you understand now? Anna asks. There is no other sign of the soothsayer, only her strained voice. A bolt of lightning streaks across the sky. Do you see your fate before you, as I do? Another resounding crack of thunder, and you are suddenly awake. Icy rain pelts your body, soaking through to the bone. You are lying in the mud beside a wooded trail, and there is no other soul in sight. My goodness. You've just suddenly something's happened. You suddenly find yourself in the woods. It's no longer a breezy November evening in Arkham, it would seem. So, yeah, that's a bit of a shock change to things, that's for sure.
Definitely.
Yes, and then so it's on to setup.
So yeah, one moment we were there in Arkham, just having a friendly chat with the soothsayer.
Yes.
And the next we're lost in the woods.
Yeah. And it's raining and we don't know where we are. And not only that, but we are lost and separated as well from everybody else. That's the other thing. Yes.
Yes, there's a bit of a new mechanism that they've added in here. Yeah, yes. Shall I read that bit now?
Yeah, good idea.
Rather than go through the setup. During this scenario, the investigators begin play separated and cut off from one another. This is represented by locations entering play in front of each investigator, so placed just above their play area. Act 1A, Lost in the Woods, has the text, locations in front of you are connected to one another. This means that regardless of location and connection symbols, the locations in front of you are considered to be connected to one another, and enemies and investigators may move between them. Locations remain connected to one another via their location connection symbols as well. However, Lost in the Woods also has the text, you cannot enter locations in front of other investigators. This means that you cannot move to a location in front of another investigator even if the two locations are connected or if you are moving via a card effect. Note that this restriction does not apply to enemies, who are free to move between connected locations regardless of which investigator those locations are in front of. So it's sort of like a little extra layer of connectivity on those locations, isn't it? The ones in front of you are connected to each other. The ones in front of your colleague are in front of them. But you cannot, for now, travel between them, despite what the symbols say, although the monsters can.
Yes, exactly. So, it's the idea that you've clearly all been transported here, but transported here in separate places in the woods. You haven't all been dumped in the same place. I guess it doesn't make so much sense if you're playing true solo because you'd just be lost rather than lost and separated. But
that's true.
It's a bit of a niggle, but it's nothing real. Yeah, so there are 5 witch haunted woods locations, and you kind of just split them up, don't you? Between I think there's 5. There's more than 5, but you take.
But you only put 5 of them out, don't you? So
right,
you're never quite sure what you're going to be facing.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, exactly. So everybody, for better or worse, has kind of got to fend for themselves at the beginning. You conceivably in a larger group, you could have some people who have no capacity to get clues or anything, kind of just blindly stumbling around in the woods, while others would be hastily hoovering up clues and things. Interesting start if you've sort of, spent time balancing your party and making sure you've got everybody who can do everything, and then suddenly everybody's separate, at least for the foreseeable future anyway.
Yeah, and obviously that removes the ability to even help each other, doesn't it? So
exactly.
You really are separated.
Exactly. And does that mean, I suppose, if you're what's his name from the Dream Eaters, where you can go to his little gate box and things, and I don't know whether that means. I suppose he can't because those other locations aren't connected at this stage. So even if you're someone like, I forget his name now, Luke, if you're Luke, you can't go bouncing around to other people's locations or anything like that.
You can bounce around your own individual locations, but you could move between them anyway. So
yeah, exactly. So it's not really, exactly. And that's it, really. The setup's pretty straightforward. Apart from that, it's really just that, isn't it?
Yeah. You have a couple of bits we have to set aside, but that goes without saying. That happens all the time, doesn't it?
Yeah. So a bit like the investigators, it's completely kind of quite disorientating, really. You're just kind of dumped in the woods. Yes.
Okay, I'll just have a quick look at the scenario card. I've already briefly talked about the tablet and the Elder Thing, that they were -1 and a -3, and both have their own negative connotations, but we'll only have one of those 2 at this stage, depending on the decision that we made. There's no cultist in the bag at this point, so that's not on the card. So the only other one is a skull, which is a -1, and for each point you fail by, discard the top card of the encounter deck. And that will become more important later on, as I think there's some gameplay mechanics around the encounter deck running out, isn't there?
There are, yes, and things in the encounter deck and things. So at first it's like, oh, that's not so bad, is it? Oh, yes. Yes. I think, shall I read out Act 1A here?
Okay.
Which gives you a little bit more information, I suppose. It's got a very ominous picture of sort of woods with a looks like a fire and some kind of silhouette in front of it. So it says, you have awakened alone deep in the woods south of Arkham. The mysterious soothsayer is nowhere to be seen. You rise up from the muddy trail to try to find your bearings. An oppressive weight hangs in the air. And it just reiterates again that locations in front of you are connected to one another, and you cannot enter locations in front of other investigators. So that's just reinforcing what we already know. And objective at the end of the round investigators may spend the requisite number of clues as a group to advance, and that's 2 per investigator, so not too bad.
Particularly with you not having to spend them individually, then
Yes.
if you have got one of your team who cannot investigate for toffee, then at
Yeah.
least it's not going to stonewall the progression.
Exactly.
And then looking at the agenda 1A, Temperance 14, which is one of the cards that the soothsayer put out in front of us, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Remain calm and you may peer into an uncertain future. The balance of the universe has tilted. You are the fulcrum. Be patient and all will be revealed. And that's an 8 doom threshold.
Yes, quite a long doom threshold, and a very enigmatic card because it's not really saying anything very much. Except there's some kind of fate going on. It's like just relax and go with the flow, kind of. Really, that's what it's sort of saying.
And lovely bit of art as well. That is sort of like a crow that seems to be vomiting gold into a goblet. But
yes.
The artwork that they've used for all of these tarot cards is beautiful, and I think if I remember right, they used it in all of the marketing materials in like all of the preview articles leading up to the game coming out.
Yes, they did.
But then eventually it made its way onto actual tarot cards in the return box, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Exactly, it did, yes. And I think from memory there was quite a lot of excitement with the idea of the tarot cards and what they would mean and, how they would work and those sorts of things. And I think it was a nice addition, giving an extra slot, tarot slot. You don't see people putting them into their decks very often these days, but actually some of them are pretty good, and if you get them in your opening hand, you've got them out on the table straight away, so not bad, I don't think. Yes, so there we go. So we're stumbling around in the woods trying to find each other, presumably, that kind of thing. So yes, and these witch-haunted woods, they're just, as you would expect, it's just a lovely outing in the woods, isn't it, Kevling?
Yeah, so they've all got the same back, obviously, because we are lost in the woods and they're not going to want us to know which locations we're about to enter. And they've all got the flavour text. The frigid wind howls around you as you venture deeper into the haunted woods beyond Arkham. And they've all got the sort of squiggly symbol, and all of them have the squiggly symbol as a connected location at the bottom, just to reinforce the idea that all of these locations are connected to each other. Unless they're in front of your colleague, then you can't go over there. So shall we just work through these locations one at a time, just to see what we might be facing?
Absolutely. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'll take the first one I've got is Witch Haunted Woods Child's Treehouse. And it looking at the art, it's a very, very dilapidated and it's just falling apart, that child's treehouse, with it looks like the most dangerous rickety ladder going up that tree. And then there's a sign on the tree in front nailed onto it that says "Keep out." So this is a 1 shroud location, 2 clues per investigator. Forced. When the last clue is discovered from this location, spawn the topmost enemy in the encounter discard pile at this location. If there are no enemies in the encounter discard pile, discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until an enemy is discarded and spawn that enemy instead. So you're not getting away with it just because this is the first location you're at and there's no discard pile yet. You are still going to be facing an enemy once you've got that last clue.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure narratively why an enemy will appear here when you've investigated it as much as you can. It's not like it's an space of significance, unless this child's treehouse has other narrative meanings. I don't know, but yeah,
I don't think so. No,
unless it was hiding in the treehouse, perhaps.
Yeah, hiding in the treehouse. Exactly. I mean, it is a victory point as well. So a lot of these,
That's
in
true,
fact,
yes,
all of them are victory points. So it's you have a potential to get quite a lot of victory points from this if you can get the clues. The next one I have here is the can stones. A can. Is that a pile of rocks? A can?
Yes, I think it's like is it like a burial ground sort of thing? I think, or I'm not sure. Is it like a monument?
Can be used as a marker, memorials, landmarks, or burial monuments. So everything from a simple pile of rocks to an elaborate...
I was right on both of my guesses then. There you
Yes.
go. It's either a pile of rocks or a monument or a burial ground.
Exactly. And that's why you're sagacious, see?
I'd already forgotten that word.
It doesn't sound, it's kind of the word that doesn't sound like it is. You know, if someone says, oh, you're sagacious, you'd be like,
how dare you?
No, what? How dare you? I saw the doctor only last week. So anyway, this is a 3-shroud location, 2 clues per investigator. Forced after any number of clues are discovered from this location, each investigator at this location loses an equal number of resources. So, yeah. So basically, you're going to end up skint if you get any clues from there.
And the flavour text kind of gives away what a cairn is as well.
Ah, yes, sorry, the flavour text. What does it say? Do they mark a gravesite or something more sinister? Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah.
See, we ought to just read the cards. It helps.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
Right, next one I have is The Lonely Tree. And an incredibly sort of gnarled, totally unrealistic looking tree. It looks like it's got hands.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what those spheres are on it, part way up, but they're supposed to be eyes.
Seems very sinister looking, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'll read the flavour text on this one. The ghastly likenesses of tortured figures writhe within its bark, gnarled and emaciated. It is agonising to look upon. Ooh. Yeah, the artist definitely hit the mark there. Nailed the brief. 2 shroud, 1 clue per investigator. You cannot investigate this location while you have between 3 and 5 cards in hand. Okay. I don't know why didn't they just say if you have 3, 4 or 5 cards in hand?
Don't know.
Surely it's more words to say between 3 and 5 cards. And you can argue that only 4 is between 3 and 5. And then there's a player window free action. You choose and discard 1 card from your hand. Then an investigator at a different Witch Haunted Woods draws a card, or vice versa. Limit once per round.
Excuse me. Okay,
I'm not
that's
quite sure how that works. I guess it's because you're restricting yourself, someone else has more opportunity. I don't know, but not quite sure why that fits with the Lonely Tree.
Yeah. No, it's not clear at all, really, is it?
It's almost like you're posting a card into a slot in the tree and it pops out in somewhere.
And it zings away somewhere else. Yeah, something like that.
I don't know.
But quite handy.
Definitely. Especially because you need a specific number of cards in hand to be able to investigate.
Yes.
So at least that gives you an opportunity of bringing your hand size down if you've got more than the 5.
Exactly. So it's, yeah, exactly. So I suppose it's not quite as punishing compared to just losing cards, I suppose.
Yeah.
The next one I have here is the Hermit's House, which looks suitably dark and, well, it's more than one house. It looks like a whole kind of farmhouse kind of complex.
Not much of a hermit if he's living there, is he?
Yeah, I know. It's a whole complex, really. Hermit's complex. It's 4 shroud with, again, 2 clues per investigator. So a lot happening here. Forced. After any number of clues discovered from this location, each investigator at this location must discard an equal number of cards at random from his or her hands. So this is much more punishing than the Lonely Tree, that's for sure, because this is going to, it's really could be quite nasty. And the flavour text says, though this trail was abandoned many years ago, a light still shines in the attic of one of the decrepit houses nearby. Ah, yes, it does too. But again, it's not really a reason or any kind of linkage, really, is there? They're just effects, really.
Okay, my next one is the Overgrown Barn, and looking at that artwork, it looks like tentacles writhing out of it, or I guess they could be roots or tendrils of a plant, with them describing it as overgrown. And then the flavour text is, nothing has lived inside this barn for decades. At least, as far as you know.
Oh.
3 shroud, 1 clue per investigator, and as a reaction, when an enemy would spawn at a different witch-haunted woods, spawn it at this location instead, and then it makes an immediate attack at each investigator at this location.
Okay. That kind of makes more thematic sense, doesn't it? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, I don't think anything's living here.
Surprise.
Yes. And then we've got here the Tainted Well. Isn't that a famous song from the 80s? Tainted Well, whoa, ho, tainted well. No, not quite. Three shroud. Yeah, 1 clue per investigator. Investigators at other witch-haunted woods locations can commit 1 card to each skill test performed at this location and vice versa. Again, maybe you can communicate through the well or something, and you can tell it's a tainted well because it's sort of greeny.
Yes.
There's sort of a green tinge in the well. And it says, a few tufts of grass are all that cling to life around the base of this old well. The rest of the landscape sucked dry of colour. Okay.
Quite ominous. And the last one I have is Abandoned Mine. 2 shroud, 1 clue per investigator. No flavour text, I've been robbed. You cannot investigate this location while you have between 3 and 10 resources. And as a free action, choose an investigator at a different witch-haunted woods. Move up to 3 of your resources to that investigator's resource pool, or vice versa. Group limit once per round. So I guess it's similar to the was it the tree? Yeah, that weird tree. Yeah, if you don't meet the criteria, it gives you a way around it.
Yeah. So you stumble around in your little mini area until, and yeah, you would think most of the time you're going to get the clues before the eight doom sort of clicks over. You would think, yeah.
Yeah, and there's only ever going to be 5 of these out. So at worst, the lowest numbers you're going to have is there's 4 1s and 3 2s. So at the very least, you've got 4 1s and a 2 out there.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe if that 2 is stuck with, well, no, so that's 1, 2, 3. That's 5 clues per investigator are going to be out, and you only need 2 clues per investigator. I was just trying to think whether you could be scuppered if the only decent clues were in front of the person who can't investigate. But
yes,
yeah, I guess there's enough there's enough flexibility in there with you only needing 2 per investigator for you to be able to move forwards.
And even if you were unlucky and got the 4, 3, 3, and 3, there's 3 3s and 1 4 shroud, and then 2 2s and a 1. Even then, I mean, most of the time, most parties are going to be okay, really.
Yeah.
You know. So, yeah.
So I guess at this point we're advancing the act, aren't we?
Yes.
So do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So Act 1B is deeper into the woods. So it's definitely this idea that you're slowly getting deeper inside the woods. As the rain lets up, a dense fog rolls in throughout the area. Soon all the woods have vanished within the hazy fog. You call out for your companions, but none answer. You grope blindly in the haze, searching for something, anything which you can cling. Each investigator must randomly choose one of the set-aside Arkham Woods locations and put it into play in front of him or her, and immediately move to that location. So they are the Arkham Woods locations from the Devourer below? Yes.
I think they are, yes.
Yep. So, yeah, they're sort of repurposed in this case. Each investigator spawns a set-aside goat spawn at his or her location. If there are 4 investigators in the game, the lead investigator spawns a set-aside relentless dark young, and each other investigator set-aside goat spawn instead. Each investigator then tests willpower or agility, 3. Each investigator who succeeds exhausts that enemy and disengages from it, which is kind of a nice thing because otherwise it's pretty nasty that you suddenly, because they can move anywhere So shuffle one of the set-aside copies of Demonic Piping into the encounter deck and place the other 2 copies in the encounter discard pile. So that's that. So you're still lost in the woods, but the difference is now you've got enemies stalking you separately, which is going to be a bit of a problem for those seekers amongst the party who didn't think they'd have to do any fighting, or maybe didn't think they'd have to do any fighting or evading. Oh dear. Yes.
And if I remember right, that Demonic Piping does nothing on its own, but once there are 3 of them out, it summons an enemy, doesn't it, I think?
I mean, the Demonic Piping, that's something that comes up quite a bit in Lovecraft, but particularly in Dreams of the Witch House. The Demonic Piping, if you know your stuff, you'll know that's linked to Azathoth, is the demon sultan who sort of plays the pipes and things. So Demonic Piping kind of would give you that hint if you know your
So we've got to put Demonic Piping on the agenda, was it?
Yes, that's right.
So put a Demonic Piping on the agenda. So it doesn't do anything on its own, although it does have Surge if you're drawing it normally. But once you've got 3 of them on there, then the Piper of Azathoth is spawned. And then every time you deal another Demonic Piping, he will deal horror to every investigator it is and connecting location. So that's sort of like an ominous build-up before this horrific creature appears, and he really is horrific when you look at that artwork.
Yeah, pretty nasty.
It looks like a set of living bagpipes, actually.
I was just going to say, it looks like a sort of bagpipes that have been possessed or something. I mean, it just only does 2 mental damage, so it's fairly light up. But 572. Wow, it's and it's alert, hunter, and retaliate. So
and his prey is whoever has the least remaining sanity.
Yeah, wow. So pretty nasty all round. So you don't want that. I mean, the chances of that happening most of the time are going to be not too bad, I suppose.
Yeah, so I suppose it depends how long the game goes on for as to the likelihood of all 3 of those coming out and summoning him.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's the Lost in the Woods. So we're stumbling around now with enemies and things, and then we move into Act 2A.
Act 2A, Witch Hauntings. Whatever arcane rites are being practiced in these woods, they are attracting the attention of all manner of vile beasts, the likes of which you have never seen. Is this what the soothsayer was trying to warn you about? Locations in front of you are connected to one another. You still cannot enter locations in front of other locations, and we've got to spend 1 clue each per 2 advance.
Yeah, that's pretty quick, really, isn't it? It's only 1. Seems a bit strange that they had another whole act just to do that, but anyway. Yeah.
I mean, I guess we've got some enemies out now that's going to slow us
down. A bit. Yeah. Yes, a little bit. Yeah. Still, you'd think you'd get through most of the time. You should get through Act 1A and 2A before the agenda flips, you would think.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
So shall we progress the act then?
I think so. I think so.
So Act 2A progresses to Strange Melodies. As you scour the woods for answers or a path that will lead you back home, you find yourself drawn off the beaten trail by a mesmerising melody of silvery pipes. Deep into the damp, hazy woodland you delve, searching for the source of the strange music. Finally you come upon a foggy clearing, at the centre of which lies a half-rotted tree stump. An old but delicately carved wooden flute lies atop the stump, silently beseeching you to approach. The moment you touch the instrument, the piping melody that lured you here is cut short, and the dense fog around you disperses with a sudden breeze. For the remainder of the scenario, investigators may now enter locations in front of other investigators.
Yay! At last.
Yes. Want to read the Act 3A then that we've just revealed?
Yes, so Act 3A's Paths into Twilight. With the strange fog dispersed, you are now able to explore the woods. You are unable to find the main path that leads back to Uptown, but this is your chance to discover more about the ritual the witches are conducting. Locations in front of you are connected to one another.
We could run to each other's aid now.
Yes. And it's now ramped up to 3 clues per investigator, so it's getting a bit more tough now. But everyone's
so I
back.
think you're right. We're at the point where the agenda will probably advance now.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Do you want me to? Shall I take that?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
The rite commences. That doesn't sound good, does it?
No.
The moon reaches the height of its arc in the night sky. The trees begin to shift and twist in the breeze, as though made of something other than solid matter. Dozens of birds suddenly scatter from every treetop. In the distance you can hear a faint melody, the pitch bending in the wind. A cloaked figure emerges from the darkness beyond the brush, a vortex of magical energy coalescing at her feet. "Are you the ones who have been meddling with our works?" she wonders aloud, gazing at you suspiciously from underneath her thick hood. "It is no matter. You are not welcome here," she threatens. "Be gone, or face the consequences." I don't know why she's talking like that. Discard all but the last 5 cards from the encounter deck. The investigator with the most cards in his or her play area must draw the topmost witch enemy in the encounter discard pile. Do you want to take Agenda 2A?
Yeah, so then Agenda 2A, which is the only other agenda, and it's got 12, so it's going to hang around for a while. It says, "The night howls. As midnight draws nearer, the forest begins to take another form. A canopy of darkness overtakes the stars. The wind picks up in intensity, its whistling echoing through the trees. A dangerous power gathers deep within the woods, drawing only the foul and the foolish. Forced, at the end of the round, place 1 doom on this agenda for each witch enemy in the witch's circle, which you wouldn't know what that means at the moment, but you'll know what it means shortly. So yes, there's clearly some kind of witchery going on in the woods. Yeah,
but for now we've still only got those witching hour locations in front of us, haven't we?
Correct, that's right.
So we are still stumbling around those 3, but at least able to move into each other's areas now to help each other out, particularly if you've got someone who can't get those clues.
Exactly, yeah, and I have a couple of enemies at least. The odd witch, when we had the odd witch, we had the goat spawn, we had all kinds of enemies running around after us as well. Yeah,
we got a little bit swamped at this stage, didn't we, or at least on the next stage.
Yes, exactly. So, but hopefully, if you can hold your nerve, you'll get through and get the next lot of clues, and then be able to flip Act 3A.
Okay.
And which is indeed a location. Yay! So yes, this is just a witch's circle. So this is the one that's referred to on Agenda 2A. It's almost like they assume that you'll have gotten this far when you get to Agenda 2A. Do you know what I mean? Because it talks about the witch's circle, which is
It's strange though, isn't it? Because to get to this point, you'll have found the pipes and the music will have stopped. But the agenda we've just read talked about the music still playing.
Oh yeah, yes.
Or at least the agenda 1B that just flipped.
Yes.
I'm sure it mentioned music, and I was reading it.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, in the distance you can hear a faint melody, the pitch bending in the wind. If you found the witch's circle, the music's already stopped because it stopped on the previous. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, agenda. So there's a bit of a disconnect there. So I mean, yeah, it's there's fog clearing, there's music and things, but yeah, you're right, it doesn't quite line up. Yeah, but most people aren't going to notice that. Really, we didn't notice. I don't think when we played it, did we?
No.
And the witch's circle is it's just another woods location. It's 3 shroud. It's got 3 clues per investigator. Put the witch's circle into play in the centre of the play area in front of none of the investigators, so it sort of sits above everybody or in the middle of everybody. Lead investigator spawns a set aside Annette Mason at the witch's circle. Forced after the enemy phase begins, move each ready unengaged witch enemy once towards the witch's circle. So witches are going to move towards there. Annette Mason is already sitting there at the now, and also, as it says on the agenda, you put 1 doom on the agenda at the end of the round for each witch enemy in the witch's circle, and of course Annette's already there, so at the very least probably you're going to have At least you would, even though it was 12 doom threshold, it's going to start racking up pretty quickly if you don't sort of manage the witches, so to speak.
Yeah, and that kind of makes the agenda make a bit more sense now. So at the end of the enemy phase, the witches move towards the witches' circle, and then at the end of the round, you're getting extra doom for how many witches have got there. So it all sort of pulls together. So probably now makes sense to look at Annette Mason. So yeah, Annette Mason, the High Priestess. She has 4 fight, 4 health per investigator, and 4 evade. She's humanoid, witch, and elite, and she has retaliate. So forced, after the enemy phase begins, discard the top 3 cards of the encounter deck, spawn each witch enemy discarded by this effect at Annette Mason's location. If no witch enemies are discarded, ready her. So now that's 3 different things that are happening surrounding the enemy phase around the witches and the circle. And I think this is where Circle Undone starts to get a little bit more complicated compared to other campaigns, doesn't it? Because it starts layering on all of these extra things that you need to keep tabs on.
Yes, exactly.
So when the enemy phase begins, you're discarding 3 cards, and if there are any witches there, they go to Annette's location. So yeah, when the enemy phase begins, you're potentially getting up to 3 witches spawning at at Annette's location. Any witches that are roundabout start moving towards her as well, and then at the end of the round, you get doom for however many witches are there. So it could spiral quite quickly, depending on how badly that encounter deck is stacked.
Yes, so enemy management is an important part of this particular scenario, either by evading enemies so that they can't move, or getting rid of enemies so they can't move into the witch's circle. And remember, if you took the elder thing, as we were saying before, that's if you draw that one, you choose an exhausted or damaged witched enemy at your location or a connecting location, ready that enemy and heal all damage from it. So so if you happen to have chosen this is the bullshit option, you're going to also find yourself. And we found that actually came back to bite us in this particular scenario.
You half killed Annette Mason, didn't you? And then she healed all of her damage with thanks to an elder thing pull. I suppose the other thing is you've got a little bit of breathing space because as part of the agenda advancing, there are only 5 cards left in the encounter deck. So when you're doing Annette's draw the next 3 cards and spawn any witches, chances are all the witches are in the discard pile at that point.
Yep.
Yeah. So you've probably got a couple of turns before the chances of drawing those witches increases again.
So then we've got agenda. Oh, and just one other thing, sorry, about Annette Mason. I should just make the point about her is that Keziah Mason is the key antagonist in the dreams in the witch house. So I'm assuming, and I don't know, maybe it's described later, but I'm assuming Annette Mason is some relative of Keziah Mason in some way, but we don't know at the moment, but that's what you would assume, I think.
Mm-hmm. Not going to be accidental that they've chosen that surname, is it?
Highly unlikely. So we've got Act 4A now, so we kind of know what we've got to do with Act 4A. Shall I read that?
Yeah, sure.
Do you want to read it? It says a circle unbroken. So we're in the Circle Undone. This is a circle unbroken. You come across a clearing where a ritual circle has been constructed. Several hooded figures stand around it in a trance, unaware of your presence. Overlooking the ritual is a powerfully built woman who brandishes a long wavy dagger. She sees you approach. Leave this place at once, she commands. I've noticed there's quite a lot of duplication in the text. Have you noticed that between the text and what's in the book or something and what's on the text here? There seems to be a bit of duplication going on, or is it just my imagination? But it seems that way. So locations in front of you are connected to one another. If Annette Mason is defeated, advance. If there are no clues on the witch's circle, advance. So you basically have 2 ways you can do things. You can just, defeat Annette, or you can get the clues where there's 6 of them on the location. Yep, and that's basically what you then have to do while the witches are swirling around.
Yeah. Although Annette keeps readying herself, doesn't she? If you fail to draw any witches as part of her effect, she'll ready.
Yes.
So she's constantly going to be interfering with your ability to find the clues there, unless you've got multiple investigators at that location, and one of them could maybe keep Annette busy while the others are trying to get the clues.
Correct.
Okay, so I tell you what, shall I progress the agenda? So let's say we fail at doing either of those things. What happens next? Reincarnation. A column of lightning flashes in the sky, coupled with an ear-splitting clap of thunder that resonates throughout the woods. The earth trembles and the wind howls as it rushes all around you, intermingled with what sounds like screaming and shrieking of somebody torn in anguish and misery. That is when the flutes begin to play. Each surviving investigator is defeated and must search their collection for a random basic omen or curse weakness and add it to his or her deck. Each investigator who cannot suffers one mental trauma instead.
There we go.
So that doesn't sound ominous at all, does it?
So that's if you've managed to not be defeated and you've sort of hung around long enough, basically, isn't it?
Yes. If the Doom has advanced past the 12, and we've still not dealt with Annette or got all those clues.
Yeah. If we do one of the other two, it's called a Circle Undone, as opposed to Reincarnation. If you had advanced by defeating Annette Mason, stop! The Coven's leader yells in a commanding voice, grimacing from the wounds you've inflicted. You're not sure if she's speaking to you or to the hooded women surrounding you, but regardless, there is a sudden stillness in the clearing around the circle R1. If you advanced by discovering all of the clues in the witch's circle, a loud crack echoes throughout the woods as you break the circle and reverse the witch's spell. No, they've broken the ritual, one of the witches screams as the spell's energy backfires. White-hot lightning strikes the centre of the field, sending dirt and debris flying in every direction. You duck for cover, R2. There we go.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's that then.
Mm-hmm.
So shall we see what those resolutions spell for us then?
Yeah.
So firstly, if no resolution was reached because we were defeated and it was Act 1, 2 or 3, then you go to Resolution 3. If you were defeated and it was Act 4, you go to Resolution 4. But Resolution 1 is if you advanced by defeating Annette. So, despite her wounds, the leader of the Coven rises to her feet. More of the hooded figures emerge from the tree line, eager to defend their leader. Interloper, one calls you, pulling off her hood and pointing a gnarled wooden rod in your direction. Her bright red hair glows in the firelight, embers dancing about her extended hand. They're the ones from before, High Priestess, the ones who interfered with our great work. The High Priestess holds up a single hand and a hush falls over the other witches. As always, I admire your perseverance, sister, but I do not believe these are the ones you speak of. She replies to the red-haired accuser. You lower your weapons as several of the hooded figures approach and surround their leader. They begin chanting in a soft tone as they examine her wounds. The red-haired witch crosses her arms and watches you with a hard glare, her gaze never straying far from you. I am Annette, says the leader of the Coven, and these are my sisters. Tell me, who are you and why are you here? You explain how you awoke in the woods, how you were attacked by terrible creatures, and how you came to the centre of this circle in order to break the spell surrounding the woods. Annette's eyes narrow as she hears your story. That is impossible. The circle was closed. None could enter the woods while we were completing our spell. She grits her teeth. You must go at once. This is not your place. But High Priestess, the red-haired witch exclaims, only to be interrupted by Annette's gaze. The two lock eyes in a battle of wills that quickly proves Annette victorious. Stand down, Erin, Annette says with a firm, motherly tone, as though admonishing a child. She turns her attention back to you as the witch named Erin lowers her head in defeat. Go. You've broken the spell just as you desired. You can leave the woods now, but I give you one final warning. Cross us again, and we will not be so merciful. You begin to protest, but before you are able to utter a single word, a dark gale snuffs out the fire at the centre of the clearing. Shadows from beyond the tree line suddenly twist and coil into the clearing, tugging at the edges of the witches' cloaks. One by one, the shadows twist and pull each of the witches into the darkness beyond. In moments, they are gone. You are left with only the soft glow of moonlight to guide you home. In your campaign log, record that the witch's spell was broken. In your campaign log, under Mementos Discovered, record Mesmerizing Flute and Ritual Components, and we each earn 1 bonus experience as we gain insight into Arkham's mysterious past, and we get the usual victory points.
Now, Resolution 2 is almost identical to Resolution 1. I think the opening paragraph is pretty much the only part that's... With the spell broken, the hooded figures turn their attention to you. More of them emerge from the tree line, eager to take vengeance upon you for destroying their plans. Interloper, one of them calls you, pulling off the hood and pointing a gnarled wooden rod in your direction. Her red hair glows in the firelight, embers dancing about her extended hand. You will not escape this time, she cries, preparing to strike you down. Then stop. The leader of the coven yells in a commanding voice, holding up her hand. The red-haired accuser stops in her tracks, and there is a sudden stillness in the clearing around the circle. And then I think it's the same, but High Priestess, they're the ones from before who've interfered in our great work, etc., etc. So it's very, very similar, right? The only difference is here that you record that the witch's spell was broken, rather than...
Oh, no, that's the same.
Oh, no, same. Yeah, that's the same. And you get the mementos discovered are the mesmerizing flute and the scrap of torn shadow. That's the only difference there.
Okay. So then Resolution 3 is if we were defeated during one of the first 3 acts.
Yeah.
So that was after... That was basically before you found the Witcher's Circle. I think that's right. Yes.
Yes, correct.
So if we're defeated before we reach the circle, is Resolution 3. You collapse to the ground in exhaustion, your head swimming with otherworldly voices and the high-pitched piping of 100 discordant flutes. Your entire body rattles with the sensation, blood trickles from your ears, and tears well in your eyes. You try to crawl to safety, but it is to no avail. The piping only grows in volume, the discordant cacophony shattering your eardrums and turning your thoughts to sludge. Eventually, after what feels like hours, weariness claims your consciousness. When you next awaken, it is by the side of Hangman's Brook, where a small child is shaking you vigorously by the shoulders. "Get back here, don't touch him," the child's mother even calls to the boy, and he recoils from you. Considering the state you're in, you wouldn't be surprised if she thought you some kind of rummy. You brush some of the caked dirt off your coat and rise begrudgingly to your feet, wandering towards Uptown. In your campaign log, record that the witch's spell was cast. So check the Act deck. If it was 1 or 2, you don't record anything, but if it was Act 3, you record under Mementos Discovered, Mesmerizing Flute, and we gain a bonus XP, and then the usual victory XP.
Yeah, and Resolution 4 is similar. The difference is much longer, that you collapse up to the ground in exhaustion, your head swimming with otherworldly voices and the high-pitched piping of 100 discordant flutes. The sensation fades as the circle's leader approaches, her powerful form looming over you, because this is the one where you've sort of hung around for long enough. "We cannot allow the spell to fail. Take them to the edge of the woods and make sure we are not interrupted," she commands several of the other hooded women. They grab you by the arms and hoist you up, dragging you away from the central clearing. You try to resist, but your limbs are numb and sluggish, and the cacophony of sound and sensation assaulting your mind has turned your thoughts to sludge. Eventually, what feels like hours, you are hurled to the ground and weariness claims your consciousness, and then you're awakened by the child in the same way. So again, the witch's spell was cast, so whatever ritual they were doing, they managed to get done. Mementos discovered the mesmerizing flute, and that's it. That is it. Yeah. So it's either the circle is unbroken or the circle gets undone, essentially. I guess that's where the Circle Undone comes from. Yes, the Circle Undone, because if you defeat a net mason or you discover the clues, it's literally called a Circle Undone. So clearly there's 2 paths here. The circle isn't undone and the ritual is completed, which is something to do with Azathoth, or it gets interrupted. and undone by you, so by us investigators. But what that means, who knows? Got no idea at the moment. So yeah.
So, what do you think?
Yeah, it's not a bad opening scenario, really. I mean, it's pretty classic, the old ritual in the woods kind of idea, which is, quite common in Lovecraftian things. I mean, it's a little bit like what's the campaign in the Dunwich Legacy where Doom awaits. You remember in Doom awaits where you've got to kind of make it up the hill while there's a ritual going on. The difference there is that that's happening at the end of the campaign, whereas this is happening at the beginning. So whereas that's kind of like the ultimate thing that's going to happen, this is like kicking off something that's going to happen. But they're sort of similar in that sense that you stumble around in the woods trying to get to the ritual and kind of stop it in some way. The difference here is that in a way you don't know, the motivation for stopping it is not clear, if that makes sense. You're kind of doing it, but why are we doing it?
Kind of sort of thrust into it, aren't we? We've found ourselves in the wood. This thing is happening. Guess we ought to stop it.
Yeah, exactly. And that for me is kind of I understand sort of the idea that fate is happening and you're just sort of an unwilling part of fate. But the problem is there's two things for me. It doesn't give you any motivation as to why you would do that. And secondly, it leaves you at the end of this scenario with no idea, what are we doing next? Where are we going? You know what I mean? It gives you so it gives you no impetus or motivation for why you would do anything anyway. And then at the end, it gives you no clue as to what you might do next. In a lot of scenarios, okay, this has happened. Okay, now I know the next thing I'm going to be doing is blah because something's happened. But this leaves you sort of in this, you just somehow there's a thing. So your player agency is really robbed so far in the scenario, in that it's almost like it's all fate and it's all happening and you've kind of got no control over any of it, which is a bit not very satisfying, I have to say.
Yeah, I guess it's more sort of background. This is something that is going on in and around Arkham, and maybe we're going to find out more as the story progresses. But at least, I suppose now that there are these witches. They're trying to do something. We don't know what. We don't know why. We don't know whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
All we've done is sort of stumble through it, really, haven't we?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
A lot of stumbling around. And I suppose maybe that's why the first agenda is sort of like the temperance, which is remain calm and be patient, all will be revealed. So it's almost like it's saying, don't worry too much about it. The wheels of fortune will kind of turn and, all will be revealed in time. Yeah, but if you think about it just from a narrative story perspective, it's imagine seeing a movie where, people get kind of thrown into a situation. They don't know why they're there, what they're doing, and they do stuff, but they don't know why. And then when it finishes, they don't know what to do next. It would be it's kind of a bit unsatisfying in a way, right? It's, it's sort of left, okay.
But then again, if this was a movie, this would just be the first bit, wouldn't it? I suppose maybe another example would be a TV series. If the first episode was just, you found yourself in the woods, you think you've come up against these witches, you don't know what they're doing, you might have stopped them, you might not. The end. Yeah,
that's true. Although, I mean, I have to say, I think the prologue kind of does that job in a way, that kind of opening thing, except everybody in that prologue was there for a reason. You know what I mean? There was stuff happening. In this one, we're just, 1 minute we're walking in Arkham and next minute we're in the middle of the woods stumbling around.
Yes.
And
following a bizarre fortune telling.
Yeah. So I suppose the breaking the circle or not is almost like an accident in a sense, right? Because we don't know why we would do it. We just know that there's all these witches around and we're being attacked. So it is sort of, like you say, it is a bit like an opening to a movie in the sense that stuff is happening to you and you're just reacting to it as best you can without really knowing why. So yeah, it does feel a bit that way. So I don't know. I don't remember too much about what the next scenario is, but I hope that, things will start to clarify in terms of what we're doing and why we're doing it. We've been drawn into something, but it's really unclear what it is at the moment.
Well, I'm guessing. I'm not guessing. I've got it here in front of me. But scenario 2, at death's doorstep, with the subtitle "4 Missing, Whereabouts Unknown." So we're going to pick up where the prologue left off, I guess.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The other thing, there is the hint, it's very subtle, that there's some factions going on here because they thought we were someone else who's been trying to stop their ritual in the before. So what's not clear is, have we been sort of almost duped or kind of controlled into trying this instead? Or are we just unwitting? Are we unwitting pawns in somebody else's game? Or, what's going on here? But there's clearly some kind of factional stuff going on that we're not aware of either. Yeah, but I mean, I think as a starting thing, it's all right, isn't it? It's okay.
Yeah. It's like you say, it is a sort of scene settings. It's setting some of the flavour for the rest of the campaign. So, yeah. Also, it's the first sign of the extra levels of complexity that Circle Undone starts adding into the game.
Yeah, that's really true. Like with the locations that only you can be at, that other people can't be at, there's that kind of thing going on. And
there's 3 different triggers with the witches, all based at different points during the each phase.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which makes the scenario a bit more dynamic than, like, if you think about the one in the Dunwich Legacy, the one I was just talking about before, where it's a ritual, where doom awaits. That's basically just your classic. You're going up one path and there's a couple of branching paths, but it's not dynamic like this is. So this is, like you say, increasing the complexity of the play and making it more dynamic in terms of things happening. Which we'll see more and more of as time goes on, I suppose, because I think there's an assumption that people know the game better.
Yeah.
Cool.
Excellent.
All right. Fantastic. Brilliant. Okay. So, yes.
Despite saying it was probably only going to be a short chat, we'd still talked for nearly an hour and a half on it. Hopefully it'll be a bit shorter once we edit it down.
And we'll have the gameplay with this one as well, we did last time. So that's it's all great. So
you can see how we reached that defeat resolution. Oh, spoilers!
Yes, exactly how we played the scenario absolutely perfectly, like we always do. So,
but yeah, we really were subject to the sort of snowball effect of spawning witches, weren't we? At the end of it, there was like witches everywhere, weren't there? And it just there was nothing we could do.
Yes, and like you said, we got Annette Mason down to half, and Preston would have finished her off the next round, but unfortunately she healed. She healed all her health back, and that was the end of that. Sebs is right. Yes. Yeah. Brilliant.
Cool.
Well, thanks very much, everyone, for listening, and we will see you next time for the next chapter, as Kevling was talking about, At Death's Doorstep. And looking forward to playing that one and seeing how that one plays through. But until then, I'm CrabbyTerror8.
And I'm Kevling.
I'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
So once more, thank you for listening. We're on all the major podcast platforms, so please subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. If you have any feedback for us, you can email us on ftextpodcast@gmail.com or message us on Instagram and Threads at ftextpodcast. So on behalf of CrabbyTerror8 and myself, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.